Inside America's toughest prison, the Florence Supermax. America's only federal supermax prison is home to some of the world's most dangerous criminals, including names you might recognize: Mexican kingpin El Chapo, Ted Kaczynski, aka the Una Bomber, and Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. Life inside the Alcatraz of the Rockies, as it is known, might shock you. The Florence Supermax ADX Florence, south of Florence, Colorado, was built in 1994. It has 490 beds and 37 acres of land. Since Florence was created to house dangerous or high-profile inmates, about 95% of its inmates have been moved from other violent prisons. To find out more, now let's get deeper into America's toughest prison. ADX Florence is known for its harsh conditions, particularly its 23-hour-a-day solitary confinement. During their hour of freedom, detainees are sent to the empty swimming pool. This skylight is 4 inches by 4 feet. Even though this approach is supposed to hinder convicts from finding out where they are, they must spend this time alone. Inmates will not be permitted to interact with other inmates in any way, shape, or form anywhere in the facilities during the first 3 years. Inmates who maintain a positive attitude and comply with all prison rules have a better chance of receiving privileges such as more outside time and, in the best case scenario, a return to a facility with a lower security level. Only a desk, stool, and bed, all made of concrete, are allowed inside the cells. Showers have timers, and the toilets are equipped to automatically shut off if they get clogged. Mirrors, lights, radios, and even TVs are sometimes allowed in cells, but only as rewards for good conduct. Rather than having a central dining area, guards bring meals to each cell. There are several cameras and motion detectors around the jail, as well as 1,400 remote-controlled steel doors and a 12-foot-high barbed wire fence. Prison perimeters are protected with laser fences, pressure pads, and attack dogs. The jail is tough, but it is also characterized as clean and fair, so it's hard to say that the inmates are being unfairly treated. Considering the conditions that most likely led to their incarceration, former ADX guards have referred to the facility as a cleaner version of hell. The jail uses isolation and sensory deprivation as a form of punishment. Isolation may cause inmates to experience psychotic symptoms, including hallucinations, forgetfulness, and heightened irritability. ADX Florence is the primary detention center for convicted terrorists and is home to some of the country's most dangerous and vile offenders. Over 400 dangerous offenders, including those responsible for the 1993 World Trade Center bombing and the 2001 World Trade Center attacks, are currently being held in the facility as of the writing for this video. In addition to Una Bomber, Ted Kaczynski, other notorious criminals include Olympic Park bomber Eric Rudolph, Oklahoma City bomber accomplice Terry Nichols, and Soviet spy Robert Hansen. Thomas Silverstein, above left, a convicted killer and former commander of the Aryan Brotherhood, has committed 4 more murders while inside, making him one of the most infamous inmates. The United States Department of Justice reports that Silverstein has remained in solitary confinement longer than anybody else in history of their prison system, since 1983. Many people believe that Silverstein's uncontrolled behavior in previous prisons was a major factor in the developments of the ADX Supermax. This is the inmate population of Colorado's unescapable Supermax prison, where the most dangerous offenders are currently being held. U.S. domestic terrorist Timothy James McVeigh, April 23, 1968, June 11, 2001, was responsible for the 1995 explosion in Oklahoma City that killed 168 and wounded over 680. Before the September 11 attacks, the bombing was the worst act of domestic terrorism in American history, and it still stands as the deadliest. Veteran McVeigh wanted to avenge the deaths of 86 people, including many children, during the 1993 Waco siege, the 1992 Ruby Ridge incident, and American foreign policy when he bombed a federal building in Oklahoma City. He justified the attack as a necessary means of resisting what he perceived as totalitarian federal government and expressed optimism that it would spark a revolution. Almost immediately after the attack, he was apprehended and indicted on 160 state counts and 11 federal felonies, the most serious of which is using a weapon of mass destruction. In 1997, a jury found him guilty on all charges and he was given a death sentence. On June 11, 2001, McVeigh was killed by lethal injection at the Federal Correctional Complex in Terre Haute, Indiana. He was put to death in a far shorter amount of time than most people on death row in the United States, where criminals often spend an average of 15 years awaiting execution. 2 more people were found guilty of being part of the plot: Terry Nichols and Michael Fortier, for the killings of 8 federal officers. Nichols received 8 life terms in prison without parole. For the deaths of the other 161, he received 161 life sentences without parole from the state of Oklahoma. After serving 12 years of his sentence, Fortier was freed. Joseph Michael Swongo, MD, born October 21, 1954, is a bona fide American serial murderer and a certified physician. Even though he only acknowledged being responsible for 4 fatalities, Swongo may have been involved in as many as 60 poisonings of patients and co-workers. He is now serving 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of release at the ADX Florence Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. His sentences were handed down in 2000. Anti-American white separatist and convicted criminal David Eden Lane was born on November 2, 1938 and passed away on May 28, 2007. When he was found guilty of racketeering, conspiracy, and violating the civil rights of Alan Berg, a Jewish radio talk show presenter who was assassinated by another member of the order on June 18, 1984, he was given a 190-year jail term. At the Federal Correctional Complex in Terre Haute, Indiana, he passed away behind bars. Lane came up with the 14 words, the most well-known slogan of the white supremacist movement in North America. Those who follow his religious, political, and philosophical ideas see him as a folk hero, and the Southern Poverty Law Center calls him one of the most significant ideologues of modern white supremacy. El-Sayed Nozer, an Egyptian-born American citizen, was found guilty of plotting to attack New York City landmarks in 1993. He was born on November 16, 1955. Prior to this, he had been prosecuted for the attempted murder of Jewish religious leader and extreme right-wing Israeli politician Meir Kahane in New York City in 1990, but was found not guilty. He acknowledged his guilt for this murder after the fact. In 1994, Nozer was found guilty on 9 counts in federal court. These included seditious conspiracy, murder in aid of racketeering, attempted murder in aid of racketeering, attempted murder of a U.S. Postal Inspection Service officer, use of a firearm in the commission of a murder, use of a firearm during an attempted murder, and possession of a firearm. French national Zacharias Moussaoui, born on May 30, 1968, pled guilty in a U.S. federal court to conspiracy charges related to the murder of American civilians in the September 11 attacks. Since his conviction, he has been transported to the federal ADX Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado, where he is serving 6 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of release. A former underboss of the Lucas crime family, Antoni Salvador Casso, was born May 21, 1942, is a reputed American gangster. Casso was known as a homicidal lunatic in the Mafia for his numerous killings, of which he claimed to the authorities he was responsible for 36. Anthony Exachuro, a former Lucas captain turned persecution witness, said that Casso's one goal in life was to murder, kill, acquire everything you can even if you don't deserve it. Casso has admitted to the killings of Frank De Sico, Roy De Mio, and Vladimir Reznikov in interviews and on the witness stand. Casso has reportedly acknowledged making many attempts on the life of John Gotti, the head of the Gambino crime organization. Casso was one of the most powerful mafiosi to turn into a government witness after his 1993 arrest. But the US government revoked Casso's plea deal and removed him from the witness protection program in 1998. A federal court handed him a 455-year jail term later that year. Those who defended the Supermax jail point out that the inmates there have repeatedly displayed a total lack of remorse for human life. Many have committed further murders while incarcerated elsewhere in the nation, on top of their original awful crimes. Historically, giving a prisoner who is already serving a life sentence an additional life term has not worked. The prospect of being sent to ADX Florence's solitary confinement unit is the most effective punishment for preventing dangerous inmates from committing more crimes. So, what do you think about America's toughest prison? We would like to hear from you in the comments below. Make sure you are subscribed along with turning the notifications on. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you back in the next video.